Again, welcome to our workshop on Master's Application in Creative Arts. I'll provide a brief outline for what the workshop looks like for today. I'll introduce Project EduAccess and our lovely panelists who have decided to take time off their weekend across different time zones, provide an overview of what the Masters looks like, what are the course structures in different areas of the world, what to expect in terms of modules, the assessment, the thesis bit of an MFA, the nomenclature, how to sort of understand what the master's programs are called across different parts of the world, how to think about and what to think about when choosing the university and the country you're applying to, what does a master's application entail, some career prospects in MFA, and then general tips. Finally, we'll also open to a Q&A. If this is your first time interacting with Project EduAccess, just a brief bit about us. Project EduAccess was born out of a realization that access to higher education, leadership, and professional opportunities is a privilege most people from marginalized communities are systematically denied through cost, information, and dispossessional barriers. With this realization in mind, Project EduAccess is just a modest, humble attempt to try to improve inclusivity in these spaces. We try to do this through four key initiative opportunities, including mentoring, counseling, and role modeling, information, advice, and guidance, capacity building and leadership skill development, and evidence based advocacy. If this is your first time ever being in one of our workshops, I encourage all of you to check out our website on projecteduaccess.com. We also have a great presence on social media, including Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, where we routinely advertise our workshops. If you're new to this and you want to know a lot more about applications, we have composed a lot of guidelines, and we've also have quite a few archives on our YouTube page. So I would recommend all of you to go there, where you will find recordings of this session and other sessions already uploaded. Finally, today we have with us two very brilliant, smart, and loving and kind people who have decided to join us. We will be speaking with Khytul, who has an MFA in Writing School from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago from United States of America. Khytul speaks English, Urdu, and Kashmiri. We also are joined with Khushboo, who has a master's in fine arts from Goldsmiths University of London in UK. Khushboo speaks English, Hindi, Urdu, Sindhi, and Gujarati. As for myself, my name is Asma Shakeel, and I am reading for an MSc in Global Imperial History at Oxford, and I speak English, Urdu, and Kashmiri. With that, I hand it over to you, Khushboo. I think you're still on mute in case you're... Perfect.
Hi, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself, but it still kept on going like that. Hello, everyone. I'm Khushboo. I'm a visual artist, and I completed my master's in fine art from the UK. So, overall, for the creative education and for applications in creative fields, the core modules that are a part of the syllabus or the part of the programs are usually they focus on artistic techniques and what's the framework of the theory that you are taking and the professional practice, and there are varied fields in that. Some of them are in visual practice, so given the creative field is a very wide field, there are visual aspects, there are performing fields as well, there are performing arts, creative writing, and digital art also encompasses in creative fields. So the other aspects of it are there are creative projects that are taken by creative professionals for the master's applications and for the master's program, and it also encompasses dissertation, which is either in the form of creative writing or in the form of thesis or in the form of creative research essays. So the courses that are usually um, the titles of the courses that you usually see for the creative arts are MA, MFA, MLit, and if it's a um, further research program, then um, MRes, um, MPhil, and PhDs as well. Next slide, please. So coming to the nomenclature, so usually MA, MFA with fine arts, with creative arts, and with uh, uh, other titles such as performing arts fields, titles from performing arts fields are also encompassed in the creative industry master's programs. So different universities have different titles for them. Sometimes the titles could be a bit confusing, but basically the core component of the course are pretty similar, even if it's a MFA or MFA, given the duration of the course, especially in the UK, given the duration of the course, the nomenclature of the degree changes. Oh, sorry, can we go back? There is another thing. Thank you. Also, there are some cross-link courses as well, where, such as at Goldsmiths, there's an MA in Art and Politics that combines the artistic and creative field part as well as the other art field with humanities and politics. It combines both of them to make it MA Art and Politics. Then there's another MFA which is in Digital Technologies, which is sometimes also titled as MSc, which takes computing, programming, and it takes arts and digital arts, and it combines the courses to make it an MSc or an MFA in digital or computing arts. So depending on what is the name of the degree and what are the core components of the courses, it could be a singular field as well, or it could be a combination. It could be a single pathway or a combination of two different pathways and two different fields combined into making a one master's degree. Yes. So the assessments part in all of these are um, are different depending on what courses you have chosen. If they are more of practice-based master courses, if it's a visual practice course, if it's a performing arts practice course, the core components are usually the practice parts, along with thesis, along with research, or with creative essays. So there are practical examinations as well as written components that are attached to them. And for the application processes, portfolio is a must. There are written components which could be artist statement or project statement or thesis proposal, but they are mostly followed by the portfolio, and portfolio encompasses creative practice, creative projects that one has undertaken, and how do they showcase it in their digital portfolio for submission. So after the end of these courses usually have the creative courses usually have either industry-based placements in the final year or in the last 6 months of the courses. If they are filmmaking courses, if they are heritage and gallery-based courses, or if they are say some performing art courses as well. For visual art courses, they usually are creating an exhibition of the works, and that goes with other courses as well. Most of these courses require at the end of the course, for the assessment part, to have a final exhibition, to have a film screening or a showcase or a performance, um, which is assessed as a final part of the master course, and then it opens to the public as well. The thesis or the written component part, depending on what the course is, if it's heavily practice based or if it's more of research or a thesis based course, depending on the course, the written component would be designed that way. More of if it's more of a practice based course and heavily based on practice, the research part or the research component and the written component might not take up that much space, might not have um, equal credits as the practice based work. Whereas in some of the courses, like one of the courses that I did, the research component was equally weighed as the practiced um, and the work that I produce. Depending on that, it changes. In some of the courses, thesis or the written component is the only part that is assessed, and that's the requirement of the course. Very important how to pick your specialization. So, given these creative fields have all these components, and depending on the what course requires of the student for the final assessment, if they require uh, a body of work as as your final piece, or if it requires a thesis or a written statement, and which way forward you'd like to go. That is the main component of how you pick your specialization, and what is your course structure, what it offers to you, how how well you'd be able to develop your practice with that specialization. Does it add to your already developing practice, or do you require it to change the path that you have already taken, or do you want to add something more to it? Depending on that, you pick your specialization. Another important part is duration of the course. Is your especially in the UK, there are specializations that are only 1 year long, and there are some which are 2 year longs. In some places like Oxford, the master course is 9 months for creative practice for MFA. So depending on the duration of the course and how long you want your course to be, you can pick your specialization. Then in the specialization, the medium that you'd be exploring, are you already familiar with it, or do you want to get familiarized with it? Do you want to get more training in that medium? Um, you can choose your specialization thinking about that as well. And another aspect is with the specialization, the strength of the school that you have chosen. Is that school um, a known school for that particular specialization? Do they have adequate facilities for that specialization? Do they have uh, tutors? Do they have alumni that support that course? And how well known is that course, or how well known is that specialization in the world as well?
We'll have Khytul do the other slides. Thank you so much, Khushboo.
Hello everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Whatever other greeting you're familiar with. Uh, I I am. My name is Khytul Abiyad. I just graduated from SAIC, and my program was it was a master's MFA in writing. And although it sounds like a creative writing program, it was more like one of those programs where like writing becomes a component of your visual art practice. So there are people who are doing um, comics, there are people who are doing poetry, like spoken poetry, and then there are people who are doing performance, text-based performance. So all different kinds of things. Thank you, Asma. Asma, can we actually go back to the last slide, because I feel like that's a very important slide, and I would like to elaborate on some of the things Khushboo said and then just add to the whole thing. I think I'm sure like Khushboo touched upon most of this, but I think it's really important. Like picking your specialization is the first step of your master's, like going into your master's program of this whole process. Picking your specialization is, especially as a fine art student, as an artist, as an art student, it's really important. One is like I said, Khushboo already touched upon it. I'm just trying to elaborate on some of the things that I think were very important to my own like journey. It was really important to know what mediums I'm already familiar with, because your master's degree, although it is a place to explore, it is not a place where they'll teach you new mediums. You might get an opportunity if you're really lucky. You might get to learn something new, but it is very unlikely. It is more like you're expanding on the practice that you already developed in your bachelor's program. So it's better to pick a medium that you're already familiar with. And then, of course, as electives, you're going to be exploring a lot of other things. So you're like, I've never done filmmaking, but I'm going to try filmmaking out, and that's fine. That's a great thing that you're going to try to learn that. But it's always really important to, like, I'm saying this as someone who went into writing with like no knowledge of writing whatsoever. Uh, it was like difficult, but then it was also okay because I was like in it. I was that's all I was doing really for 2 years. I was just writing for 2 years. So it's really important to know that this is a medium that you want to dedicate 2 years of your life to, and just like go for that medium. Yeah, that's all I wanted to add really. And then we have how you choose the university, which is also a very important aspect of your like journey as as an art student. First is program specialization. When we say like choosing your program, it means that you're looking at universities, you're looking at what different universities are offering. Like you're already sure of what medium you want to get into, but then you kind of are going into this research where you're looking at different universities that are offering different programs. Um, there's fine arts, there's digital media, there are interdisciplinary practices. A lot of schools right now are offering interdisciplinary practices. But if you want to go into fine arts, there are definitely schools for that. If you want to go to filmmaking, there are schools that just specialize in filmmaking. Then it's great to like also research faculty. It's great to I wouldn't call it faculty here. I would say if you're interested in artist work and then you see that they're like teaching at a school, it's great to get into that school to work closely to that artist. It is very unlikely that an artist you admire will be teaching at a school. As an artist, it's not very common, but then you might find someone who is teaching at a school and then you want to work with them. That's great. That's amazing. Then there are facilities and resources. It's very important as an art student to know what the school is going to be offering. Like for me, there was no studio access as a writing student. I really had to fight for it for 2 semesters, and then on the third semester, finally, I was able to I acquired a studio. But it's really important to see if this program is going to give you studio access, if you're going to have lab access. A lot of schools, when they're advertising their programs, they just like brag so much about different facilities that they have, but then you realize as a student, you might not have access to all of these resources. So it's important to like kind of do your research on that. Uh, and then school culture and community. It's really important again as an art student to know like, does the school encourage collaboration? Does the program encourage collaboration? You should be working with the people around you. Art making can be a very lonely process, but then it's, if you're in an art school, it's great to have these people around you that you're able to collaborate with. So it's really important to see that the school encourages that practice of collaboration, and it fosters diversity. Diversity and inclusion are just buzzwords right now. Every school wants like diverse group of students, but then do they really cater to your needs? Are they really listening to you as a student, as a student of like a different background? As like we're all speaking as people from marginalized backgrounds here, that is often the case that you don't really feel heard in these communities. So that's important to yeah, to find that. Sorry, I'm just sipping on my water. Then reputation and rankings. Of course, are really important too, because you're not just an artist, you're someone who's going to have a career, who's going to make, you have to make a CV at some point. You might want to run away from it for a very long time, but eventually you'll reach a point where you have to develop a resume. And while it's not really important, if you went to a good school, it will look good on your resume. People will value that. So that's good to know if your school has good ranking. Then choosing the country. Of course, every country has its own speciality. Um, if you're going into a completely fine art route, you might want to go to UK, or if you want to go to theater, music, uh, you might want to go to Royal College of Art. Royal College of Art has good MA and MFA programs. I know USA has good interdisciplinary programs. USA has good theater programs. SAIC has a good painting and drawing program, the school I went to. Then Canada has good indigenous practices. Australia emphasizes interdisciplinary contemporary art forms. Uh, Europe offers affordable and innovative programs. Um, like it really depends on what route you want to go, because like as artists there are so many different things you can do with your program. There are so many things you can do with your practice. So it's really important to know what exactly it is that you're trying to gain out of your master's, MFA, or MA, and then choose your country based on that. Can we have the next slide, please, Asma? Um, and then your academic records. It's important to like put your academic records in your application. In your application, your academics records really matter. How you did, in your undergrad, what you were doing in your undergrad, how your performance was, and also like what you were doing outside school. Were you involved in any artistic community? Were you doing any exhibitions? Did you do any side projects? I know that for you, some project that you did for a cafeteria, like you painted a cafeteria wall, it might not look like a great thing to put on your CV, but it definitely matters. It shows that you are involved, that you're like trying to expand your practice. Then your SOP, the most important part of your application is your statement of purpose. I don't know how much to like, focus on this, but this is, I think this is something people spend a lot of time writing in every field. So your SOP should be explaining your artistic journey. It doesn't have to be very academic. It can be very personal. You can write it from a very personal point of view. The same way you're talking to a friend. When we're writing SOPs, we often feel that we have to sound intelligent. Your SOP is not about sounding intelligent. It is about being honest and talking about like really talking about your journey as an artist and what you're learning in your life. Because like when you're choosing a career field, when you're choosing a field, you're really like you are dedicating your time and effort into that field, and it will automatically come like when you're having these conversations and you're talking about your aspirations. Then of course like there is professional experience that you want to talk about. There is what you did in your school, something that really something that you were really good at, like some professional experience from your school. Again, exhibitions, performances, publications, something you may have published. It might be something in a very small magazine, it might be something you wrote for a friend, uh, or any art market experience. Again, art market, when we say art market, for marginalized communities, there really is no art market. But art market, you can really define your own art market. You might have drawn an album art for a friend. You might have, that is your market. You're creating your own market. Then your specific program, uh, the program you're going to. It's also important in your SOP to write like how that program is important to you and is important to your artistic vision, how it aligns with your artistic vision. That should really show, which means that like you really have to think through like the course that you're taking. You really have to have a conversation with yourself and be like, why do I want to go to this program? And when you have that clarity with yourself, it will show in your statement of purpose. And then your CV. Again, like CV is just there are so many different ways to do CV, But the things that you have to mention are your projects, internships, industry, any experience, any work you've done with anyone really. Uh, and then you might have learned softwares. Even Canva is a thing you can put on your CV, even like AI, if you're working with AI, that's something you can put on your CV. Even if you're like having daily interactions with AI, you are learning a new skill. So that's definitely something you should put in there. Yeah, can we have the next slide? Then letters of recommendation. Again, very important. I would like to add that for me, when I was being interviewed for SAIC, my interviewers asked me who wrote like they said to me that my letters of recommendation were really, really good and they really stood out. So for me, it wasn't like I didn't go to like big famous people to ask them to write my letters of recommendation. I really went to people who knew me as a person, who had seen me, like my journey as an artist. So I think they were really able to write about me in a very individual way, like about me. It was very tailor-made. They weren't trying to like brag about things, but they were really trying to talk about my journey as an artist and how I've grown as an artist. So if you have someone like that in your life, if you have someone like that in your school, or a personal mentor who can write you a letter of recommendation, that's great. I would say go for that instead of looking for. A lot of people do this, that they think I will go to the most famous person and I'll ask them to write me a recommendation letter. That's great, but then they might not be able to write about you the way a small like professor from your school would. Then you're uh, and make sure like you have a conversation with your recommender, with your referee. You talk to them about like what things you want highlighted, because they might have forgotten some things. Then your portfolio. Of course, portfolio is so important. It is the deciding component. The first thing they're going to look at in an art school is your portfolio. If your portfolio doesn't shine, then they might not look at your SOP. Uh, your portfolio, again, when you're writing, like when you're going for master's applications, you're not going to start a whole new practice, and that's not your time to build a portfolio. That's your time to organize your work. Uh, so you have to like look at your best work. You have to kind of present your work in a cohesive manner. Pictures should be like, you should have good pictures of your work. If you don't have good pictures, that's okay. Uh, but it should be well formatted. One image per page, title, you know, title. Khushboo, can you back me up here? What are the three different things we write? Title, medium, and date. Yeah, that's it, right?
Yes, title, medium, when it was made, I would also say write notes. So instead of
Yeah.
having separate, sorry, I'll just take a little bit of
No,
time,
no, go ahead, please.
put up a lot of these portfolios for my own applications. For the portfolio, it's very important that you have clear pictures of your final work. Sometimes you can also add in sketches. I would just suggest sketches, keep them as a part of the process if you do not have final works. um, a lot of final works, depending on the university, they'd ask you different number of submissions for your portfolio. Some would have 15, others might give you just 10 images to be put there. So you really want to focus on the cohesiveness of your artworks or your when I was talking about the body of work, it was about the artwork. Or if you're a design practitioner, then your design projects. If you are a theater person, then your productions. If you're an actor, then again your uh, um, the work that you have done overall. So, or the clips that you have. If you're putting performing art clips, there are different criteria for them as well. Like you'd have to edit them and trim them into 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and there are fixed number of clips that you could send. So they have different criterias for it. Make sure to always follow that criteria. If you are not, um, those submissions are not looked at all. Even no matter how amazing the artworks are, if those criterias are not met, if you go overboard, if some university asks for 15 images and one puts in extra two there, they do not look at those images after the 15th image. That's what I have faced. That's what I've heard from the friends around me as well. And do not go over um, with the design aspect of it until unless it's for a design course. If it's for a design course, the portfolio has to shine through, not only in terms of the projects but also how well designed a portfolio is. But if it's for fine arts, the work speaks for itself. So your portfolio could be made on Canva itself. I made my portfolio on Canva for all the applications. I got through all them. I got the scholarship on that portfolio itself. So my quality of the the software that I used did not matter, until all the criteria were met, the pictures were clear, and the notes that I had added for the each project were clear, and overall the portfolio was cohesive. Those are the important components for the fine art portfolio. For others, it could be different, and to you can to continue.
Thank you, Khushboo. I think, yeah, talking about portfolio is really important. It's such a big aspect of like MFA programs and applications. And I think one thing I would like to add is that, like, if you do not have a huge portfolio, if you haven't done a lot of work, something that might not look important to you might, actually look good on your portfolio. Coming again from experience, I I was applying to a writing program. I did not have even one like complete piece of writing, but I had these like journals that I had written through the years, and I actually screenshot some of my Instagram posts and I put them together on Canva again. And it worked. It doesn't, yeah, they're not looking for this expert thing because like you're a student, you're a very young artist. So nobody is looking for professional quality from you. It just has to be really well organized and it has to make sense to you, you know. If you think this is important to you, just put it in your portfolio. It can be a very like it can be a sketch on a napkin. But if it means something to you, that would like show in your application. Yes, thank you, Khushbu. Sorry, thank you, Asma. We can go to the next slide now. Sorry, can we go back? I think there's one point that I missed. Yeah. Standardized test scores. I know that not all universities will require you to have a language test, but I think most schools do, especially if you're going. I think most schools do really. So you will have to have that. But again, I'm sure you heard this. IELTS, TOEFL are not very difficult. If you know basic English, you will crack them. So yeah. Now, career prospects. This is again a very a very difficult subject in art because it is very difficult to make money as an artist. I should tell you, I am going through like this. I just graduated, so I it took me so many months to just find one job. So I will not lie to you, it is very difficult. But but for the sake of like being hopeful in this session, I will say that you can have an independent practice as an artist. I know people who have an independent practice who make work independently and sell it and show it, and they make money. And but it doesn't happen very often. Sometimes you have to have aside from that independent practice, you have to work in a different industry to kind of support your work. Um, then there are creative industries. You could go into filmmaking, copywriting, theater, technical arts. You could be like assisting a filmmaker. You could be doing writing for a tech company. You could be doing theater for like, you could be writing for theater. You could be doing technical arts. One thing I found really interesting here, which I had no idea about, if you're a painter, you can go work for a theater and you can actually paint their backgrounds, and which is really cool to me. And design. I think design is one field where it's much easier to find work. Um, Arts administration. Working in museums, which I'm doing right now, you can work in museums, galleries, arts organizations. But again, for that, you have to have some kind of writing experience. I would suggest everyone who is present here to kind of practice some writing. You don't have to show it to anyone, but it can really help you. If you start writing about your own work, it can really help you in your future. Media and publishing, there is journalism, screenwriting, content creation. And like when we say media and publishing, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going outside your art like background. It can be very tangential. You can be writing arts journalism, you can be writing about exhibitions. um, yeah, and academia, of course, like the one field that's more promising if you want to go into universities and art schools, if you want to be a researcher for an institution. The academia, that's like one route to take. Um, and then, like, of course, like some artists who are able to show their work at Biennales. Some people also get into Hollywood and Broadway productions. And I think I already said this, but yeah, if you have an independent practice, you often need to work in a different industry to support it. General tips, I think Khushboo and I both can talk about these because, yeah, it's we already touched a little bit upon the portfolio, but yeah, well organized portfolio. Uh, like Khushboo said, design does not matter unless you're going into a design course, design program. Design of your portfolio does not matter. Keep the font simple, keep the font clean, make sure it's readable, because like they're not going to be able to zoom in. They might be looking at it on a phone, on a like small screen. So make sure that it's clear, it's readable. Um, and make sure like your portfolio shows that there is like opportunity to grow, which also means that it can have work that's imperfect. If you're like a perfectionist, if your work is so hyper realistic and if it's so great, then maybe you don't need a degree. So it should show that you're someone who wants to learn and who sees that there is like flaw in their work, and there is there's space for improvement. Then choosing the city, this is really, really important. Being in city where there is support for creative people. I am thankful to be in Chicago because there's a lot of art stuff going on. And you might find that in most cities in the West. I know like from speaking to people, all of us coming from marginalized places, we really have like little exposure to art. So you might find that here there's like more hope and more promise for art. But it's also important to look up the city that you want to go to and kind of see what's happening there, if you think that you will fit in, if you think that you will find a community, because it can be very isolating. Yeah, Khushbu, do you want to add there?
Yes, thank you. Yes. In addition to the course, university, the city is really very important, not just for your career prospects, but also for you to flourish as a person, as a human being, because art or creative fields are very isolated. You might be, if you are taking a course which is which has a structure, which has organizations and proper support to it, which has a structure to it, then it is not usually a problem because you'll always find colleagues, you'll always find a structure there to work and to support you. But with most of the creative fields like performing arts and visual arts, there are no such structures. You create your own structures. So if you are someone like me, who requires a lot of structure, who requires some kind of start and deadlines, um, you'd have to do a lot of self organization. And in that, if you are isolated, it does not help a lot. So in the cities where there are already established art communities, or if you know there are galleries, or if you think there's a flourishing art culture, then it really helps. If you think there are community studios, or if there are meetups, or if there are jams and stuff like that, it just boosts your own morale. It just helps forming your structure. It helps with the collaboration as well, and it keeps you going throughout that course. And if you want to stay further in that city, that just helps make more connection. And networking is really important in art fields, no matter if you like it, if you don't like it, it's part and parcel of the field. So choosing the city is really important for that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would also just like add a little bit about the city. I think it's also about like which city you're going to, which city you're living in, because like of course writing your sorry, of course your master's degree, of course your course is going to be taking a major part of your time, but there is also these moments of like life that you're living outside in the city with the people. So I think it's good to know that it's important to understand what place you're going to, because your food culture is going to change, like your lifestyle is going to change. Will you fit in this lifestyle? Will you be able to like cook? Cooking is becomes so important here. So will you find the ingredients that you want to cook with? So if you're going to a very like although it's great, like sometimes you can find very good colleges in like small towns, but like if you're living in a small town, you might not, like it can be a very different food culture from what you're familiar with. So I think being aware of those things, and the weather is so important, right? I have heard, like I've not been to London, but I've heard it's like always so cloudy, you barely get any sun, and that can lead to depression. Those are things that like we don't talk enough about, but we really need to. Yeah. But yeah, it can be a tiring process. You're like spending weeks and weeks and weeks on your computer and months on your computer, and there is really no result. And you're at that best, you get rejections. You are definitely going to get rejections, receive a lot of rejections, and just know that it means that you've definitely learned something through the process. It can be very tiring, so it's important to be determined to know that there is something good going to happen at the end of this. Yes, so be determined.
Yeah, Khushboo, do you want to add something?
I wanted to add something with the choosing of the course and choosing of the university
Sure,
on
sure.
that. I would say ranking is important, but it's also essential to know what you want out of that course, because sometimes the ranking can be deceiving. Rankings could be bought as well from the universities. Rankings could be different depending on who is ranking the universities. It's important to know what is the culture of the university, what is the culture of the program that you are taking. I just give you an example. So I'm in London. I have RCA over here, but instead of RCA, I applied to Goldsmiths and other programs where I could find programs and intersectionality of the subjects of um, art with migration, art with politics. So and I had the clarity of Goldsmiths and the other institutes that I applied to, that they have art and humanities as their uh, core strength, whereas I know RCA has art and design as their core strength. So just being aware of what is the core strength of that university, of that program, that helps to choose the program wisely and what's best for you instead of what's the best ranking, because sometimes ranking really are not helpful for creative fields. It just gets your foot in the door with maybe having more options if you are at number one, number two, number three, or top 10 institutes. But over the line, it's more of what you want out of that course. That's all.
Great. Thank you so much, Khushboo and Khytul. I am going to spotlight both of you so that we can hear you guys speak um, and on our screen while we take questions. I encourage anybody who feels like they have a very pertinent question to raise questions in chat or through hand. Um, I had a couple of questions in my chat. We can also answer them. There's a question, any link where to apply? I think they mean a link for applications, which of course is different for different universities in different countries. This all cycles operate very differently. Perhaps you guys may want to speak a little bit about the cycles of application, because Khushbu, for you it was UK, and Kaitul mostly primarily in the States.
Sure, I can start. Yeah. There is no one place to go. Like we wish there was, for you to find, for us to find applications. But I think you have to, we have to take a longer route, which is you go to the university website, you go to their uh, web page, find the application, and kind of look at the requirements, look at your eligibility, and take that route. Which is why it's important to know what course you're going into, and then what university you're going into, so that you can go to the website and what city you're going to, and then if you decide, if you like shortlist, there are different ways to go about this, of course, but if you decide your course and if you decide your city, then you can shortlist a few schools, you can go to their websites. um, I would say, like, don't shortlist more than 6 schools, because then it's going to get really, really overwhelming. Although a lot of this is like, there is always an overlap between, like, you can use the same portfolio, you can like work on the same SOP, but it's still 5, 6 different applications. So do not shortlist more than those courses while you're doing that. Yeah, if Khushboo may want to add to that.
No, I second that what you mentioned. Six is a really good number. If it's more than that, it can be overwhelming. When I was choosing my course from the experience I say, I was only looking at the UK because I knew the research that I wanted to conduct. I only have those resources in the UK which are particular to my research interests. So I did not even go to Europe. I did not apply to USA, even though some of the courses, some of the universities were of interest. So I first chose the country, and then I started looking at different programs of different universities. I would not. I did look at what were the more um, the universities which were high ranking, but I did not directly go with them. I also Google searched and looked for universities which have some of the. I just added the keywords there, like universities having courses for um, art and migration, or offering some electives based on my interests, migration studies, or they have a combination interdisciplinary specializations. So I really did a lot of Google searches. It took me a year to just search for the courses that really um, and the universities that really were aligned with my research interests. It's a very lengthy process. There's no such links, there are no such websites which will tell you where to apply. You definitely have those websites which have top ranking universities of this country, top ranking universities of that country, and the top courses there, but they might not be of your interest. But there's no harm in looking and finding the ones that you might get from there. But honestly, Google search is the way. A lot of trial and error, a lot of time spending looking at the courses is what would take you to your course.
Yeah, and I would also add that earlier the better. If you start looking for your um, course options or even university options very early on, you can narrow them down based on what are the qualities you're looking for, which were mentioned by both Khushbu and Kaitul. There's a question on if you could give a
Asma, I'm so sorry. I would like to add a little bit, just to what Khushbu said. I think, yeah, like, it's great to have some good ranking universities. It's also really important to have some universities that don't have a great ranking, that are like average, because you want to have a safety net. You might have chosen 5 like big universities with the highest ranking, and you might not get into any of them, which happens to all of us, you know. It took me 2 years, like Khushbu said. It took her 1 year. It took me 1 year to research the programs as well. I would actually like to send a link here. Is that okay, Asma?
yeah,
Uh, yeah, if
please.
you're like really just starting, and if you have no idea like what program you want to go in, or like what programs, like nomenclature, just to understand what kind of programs are being offered in different countries, there is a mastersportal.com that I found helpful for myself, just to understand. I'm sharing a link here, but yeah, it's just really, really simple, mastersportal.com. Feel free to go through, like, just use a keyword and it will show you different programs offered in different countries. Thank you. Yeah, that's it.
Great. There's another question asking if you could give a brief summary about what the scholarship process is like. Also, what are some of the common scholarships I can look into for masters in fine arts digital? I also received a question in my direct chat asking about scholarships because masters is not a common field that is funded in the US, while in the UK there are scholarships. There are not many scholarships for fine arts specifically. So, could you guys maybe talk a little bit about scholarships or anything?
Yeah, I can cover US and then okay. Uh, with US, it's it's not very easy to find funding, but I would say like a very good one reliable source is institutional funding. You can always rely on. There are very few institutions that offer fully funded scholarships, but there definitely are. That again is about researching, you know, schools and looking at their websites, and they will always tell you if they have like fully funded scholarships. And often schools can like deceive because they do always say that there is funding, but it's a good idea to like write to the school, send an email, and they'll tell you very clearly in the email if they have like if they really have full scholarships. I would say like in the US, I know SAIC, as School of the Art Institute of Chicago, has some fully funded scholarship. They're not a lot. It's just one scholarship per department, like one fully funded award every in a department. Yale has some scholarships. Rhode Island School of Design has some scholarships. I know UCSD has some scholarship. No, sorry, University of USC. What's it called? Sorry, University of
In
California.
California, yeah.
Yeah, one of those has full scholarships. But again, you'll always find that information on the website. Uh, Sorry to say, like there is really no easy route for this, but I'm at least telling you the few ones that I found. You know, yeah, that's US.
Adding to it, exactly for US, and there are institutional scholarships. It's just you have to go to the website, find them, drop an email to the admission team, ask them if they have those scholarships. Some of my very close friends, they have received those scholarships. Sometimes they are not 100%, they are 85% scholarship. They also offer 50% scholarship free ship as well. Canada has another provision wherein some of the universities in there, if you apply for the MRes in arts, where you are doing research, master's research, then it requires you, the research part is paid. But what they usually do is your fees is taken, your salary is taken as a part of your fee. So it's basically becomes the free ship that you get with it. For the UK, there are barely any scholarships for fine arts. There are hardly anything. There are not, the institutions are not greatly funded. They rely on international students, especially for fine arts. The funding has already been cut from here for the government, from the government sector itself. So it is a lot of self-funded or external scholarships. Again, the external scholarships for international students are very less. So the options that Indian students have are very few, which are Commonwealth scholarship, um, great scholarship if it's for computing in some of the institutes in the UK. The great scholarship is there for especially for computing or computational art or computational design, depending on which universities they are tying up with in that particular academic year. Then there's Chevening scholarship, as well as Chevening has now started taking a lot of. They are now giving scholarships to creative professionals for their master's studies. So that's one place to look for, definitely. And the third is NLEX scholarship. So NLEX and NLEX is fully funded, mostly fully funded scholarships for, except for Canada. It's for US, Europe, and UK. It also does not include any universities in Australia as well. So that one scholarship, very competitive, a lot of competition for all these scholarships. Um, but there is a chance. So a lot of time, I'd also add another thing, especially if you're in art schools, if you have graduated from art schools. These days, because there are so less scholarships, a lot of professors, a lot of tutors in your own art schools or mentors, they kind of discourage um, to take, if you are from marginalized backgrounds, they kind of discourage you to apply to the institutes abroad, given how competitive it is to get the scholarships. Nevertheless, there's always a chance. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. So apply, do not get discouraged from applying. Um, the worst, it could be a no, but it could be a yes, so apply. From personal experience, I was discouraged a lot because a lot of people would say there are barely any scholarships for art students, there's no scholarship in creative fields. Um, it it's almost impossible to get one. um, but there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. You might get something or the other and it would work out. If not at that year, you might wait, create a better portfolio, work more on your other skills, and apply next year. But it and definitely works out.
Yeah, I think I want to add a little bit, just being inspired by what Khushboo said. SAIC gave me 50% in the beginning. I only got a 50% scholarship, and of course, like for me, I cannot afford the 50%, or I couldn't even afford 20%. So I knew that I had to like reapply, and I think it's really important to kind of build a relationship with the faculty that you're applying to, like especially after the admissions process becomes really easy. After the interview process becomes really easy because you're already speaking to them, like you're speaking one on one to them. Then just reach out, because sometimes it may happen that there is no institutional funding at the beginning of your admission, like term, but then they might have more funding coming in. It can always happen. And then if you kind of have that relationship with them, they will remember you and they will, try to give you preference. It's really, a lot of people shy away from writing to the department, but it just really, really helps. It actually really helps. I think I know it helped me because when they had more funding come in, they reached out and they were like, if they asked me if I'm still interested, I was like, I definitely am. And it was May. That is when most people were applying for their visa, had applied for their visas. So I was very late for the process, but it does work out. It does. And like Khushbu said, a lot of people will discourage you, and that always happens, especially if you're coming from a small, background. People will always, yeah, discourage you. But then I mean, I know that somebody said to me that I don't need a fancy college degree, but as marginalized people, we do. Like, no one will look at our work, no one will listen to our, like, what we have to say unless we have this fancy degree on our CV. So it's just really important to remember that, like, you do have what it takes, okay? My mother used to say, the people who make it, do they have wings? Like, she used to tell me this. So yeah, none of us are born with wings, but then we kind of have to give ourselves those wings. Yeah,
Yeah, very,
thanks.
very well said, guys. And just to sort of add a comment or two on Khushbu's point, we have a lot of workshops on specific scholarships only, and we try to start our mentorship programs very early on before those scholarships open, including Shivning, Commonwealth, INLACs. In fact, there's one at Oxford too, which supports the MFA program, the Rhodes Scholarship, which is a completely fully funded scholarship. Again, extremely competitive and has a lot of requirements, especially with regards to age and other stuff, which I encourage you all to look into. But because the applications are not open until July, it's always a good thing to start thinking about these things very early on. On that note, if I'm sharing, yes, Kushbu.
Sorry, we did not. Sorry to interrupt. We did not talk about the scholarships that are in Europe. So, in a lot of countries in Europe, there, if say for France, there's Charpak. For Germany, there are individual scholarships, free ships for universities if you know the language, or in some if you don't even know the language, but for art and politics and for some very famous institutes, there are scholarships. Europe in general has more feasibility in terms of the fees and stuff. The just general criteria are very difficult to get. So, but otherwise, if you have covered all those criteria, then the fee part is more feasible in Europe and in European universities than in the UK or other places. So finances are mostly covered there. They are very well funded as well. It just they require a very competitive portfolio and really good references. And to add a part about references as well, if you're thinking of applying, if not next year, maybe in 2 years or 3 years, start developing a relation with a mentor or someone you trust would help you with your creative practice, would guide you. um, it could be simply basic as sending your portfolio. The worst they would say is no, that they won't look at it. um, Trying to network so that in not it's just not a give and take in that way, but it's also just to network, to know what's happening around in the field that you want to work in, what's happening right now, and what are the gaps that you'd like to fill in, or what are the gaps that you see that your masters would help you fill. So that would help a lot with those applications, especially when you're writing your SOP, personal statements, and also for your interviews. Yeah.
Great. Um, Khytul, I think the message you sent me went to me directly, so you can send it to the wider audience too. I just wanted to highlight that we have a writing application guide, which includes a little of the documents we have developed on our website. I've shared the link to everyone. And the recordings for this session and other sessions are also archived on our YouTube channel. I've also provided a link for that. So I would encourage all of you to check that out and reach out to us if you have any questions. And if there are no more questions, we can call it a day. Thank you so much to Khushboo and Khytul for taking time off from their weekend and Sunday um, to speak with us and do so in such a legible manner. Um, Arishia, you can email us at Project EduAccess, and we'll take it from there. And also all our social media platforms, including LinkedIn, Instagram, um, Facebook, are available. Thank you so much. Again, thank you, Kaitul and Khushbu. It really means a lot.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you so